Good afternoon, one and all. I welcome you all to the third session of first day AICT Atal FDP. Professor Neeta Shah. Neeta Shah, ma'am, are you there?
Good afternoon. Yes, I am here.
Yeah. I am proudly delighted to take an opportunity to introduce the speaker, Professor Neeta H. Sharma. She received her PhD in statistics from Gujarat University. Shah, ma'am, is an HOD of Department of Mathematics at Gujarat University. She is a postdoctoral visiting research fellow of University of New Brunswick, Canada. Professor Neeta Shah research interests include inventory modeling in supply chain, robotic modeling, mathematical modeling of infection diseases, image processing, dynamical system and its application, etc. She has published 13 monography, 5 textbook, and 475 plus peer-reviewed research paper. 5 edited books are prepared for IGI Global and Springer with Dr. Mandeep Mittal as the co-editor. Her papers were published in high impact journals, LCVR, Indus Science, and Taylor and Francis. According to the Google Scholar, the total number of citations is over 3,652 and the maximum number of citations for a single paper is over 180. And H index is 27 and I10 index is 94 till date. She has guided 30 PhD students and 15 MPhil students till now. 8 students are pursuing research for their PhD degree. 1 DSK UGC postdoctoral fellow in working under Professor Shah. Professor Shah is a fellow of AIMS and ISCA. She has traveled to United States, Singapore, Canada, South Africa, Malaysia, and Indonesia for giving talks. She is the president of Operational Research Society of India, Ahmedabad chapter. She is a council member of Indian Mathematical Society. With pleasure, I present Professor Neeta Shah, madam. Over to you, madam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Radha madam.
Good afternoon, madam.
So thank you for giving me opportunity to share my views on machine learning while with usage of
Good afternoon, madam. You have to unmute yourself. I think you have gone on mute. Yeah.
I'm sharing my. This will stop. You will have to stop your sharing, madam. Yes. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see now.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone. And I hope you will enjoy this talk because lot is said and we all are greatly influenced by or attracted by 3 words: machine learning, data science, artificial intelligence. So let us have one subset of this set, that is machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science. It also has one subset, deep learning. But if you know machine learning, some of the concepts you can easily understand what is going on in deep learning. Today, I'm going to focus on concept which is widely used in machine learning, and that is linear algebra. So let us have what is the motivation of machine learning. First is what it is and what is motivation, how it works using linear algebra. Machine learning is about designing algorithms for the huge data that automatically extracts valuable information from the data. It is concerned about general purpose methodologies that can be applied to many data sets while producing something that is meaningful. And this talk will get ended with an example what Google is using as a machine learning algorithm to find the web page and particular information, whatever you want. There are three concepts that are or can be considered as a core of machine learning. First, you should have a data, then I should have a model, and then learning. Learning is also, you can consider it to be a training. That is, if I know data, I can have a model from the data, that is data interpretation, and then I will be training it in such a way that it can be used even if data changes. Okay, the goal of this machine learning is to design general purpose methodologies so that we can extract valuable patterns from the data, like valuable patterns in the sense like like Omicron, if you think about, it started with one patient in Jamnagar, Gujarat, then 2 patients entered in Karnataka, and now 7 patients are in Ahmedabad. So if I know some data from the COVID-19 variant, I can get some, your data is available on Worldometer. So I can get some pattern that how this is transmitted, what will be the impact of Omicron in transmission of COVID-19. One more example, we can have a large corpus of documents, for example, in library. And central libraries of almost all universities and colleges are having good number of documents. But how to maintain them? And machine learning can be used to automatically find relevant topics that are shared across documents. And now most of the universities' libraries and college libraries are getting high-tech. So you just have to click, for example, if you want to have a particular author, just write down the name of the author. You can get all the information, including where it has been kept. Some of the university libraries, for example, my Gujarat University Library is also having facility to, they give a GPS. It is based on GPS. So it also gives you information that where this book is located, if it is at the same place. To achieve this goal, we design models that are typically related to the process that generates data similar to model that data set we are given. So here, in fact, what we are doing till now, if you consider differential equation or numerical methods, what we do, we have data, we have model, and we are generating data points. And here I have data and I will be formulating a model. So process is other way around. For example, in a regression setting, you all know regression. In particular, I'm talking about the scattering. So the model would describe a function that maps inputs to real valued outputs. Because when you say that this is the output, it should also match with the scenario, real valued scenario. So a model is said to learn from data if its performance on a given task improves after the data is taken into account. Now, what is the goal here? To find good models that generate well. I can generalize it in a very nice manner, well-defined form, closed form, to yet unseen data. Even if data is not known, I should be able to generalize the data which can give me the good model and which can be used for future experiments or future events. Now, next part is learning, how to learn. learning, we can understand it as a learning way to automatically find patterns. I don't have to do anything. If I have my algorithm quite efficient, then it will give me pattern also. Not only pattern, it will also give me structure. What is the structure in the data? By optimizing the parameters of the model. So here, in fact, in learning, if your algorithm is so strong, then three things are getting automatically. One is it finds what is a pattern, what is the structure in the data, and it also optimizes the parametric values. So you can see that how powerful it is. So machine learning algorithm means a system that makes predictions based on input data. Or I can say that adapts some internal parameters of the predictor so that it performs well on future unseen input data. In the previous one, what I said, it can find pattern, structure, and optimize. But if you want to predict for say 2022, any event you like, then I can do that if my machine learning algorithm is developed efficiently. And this adaptation as training a system. That is what we say, that I'm going to predict future unseen input. That is what is called training a data. So this is how it looks like. I want to have everything will be in terms of vectors or in terms of matrices. So how we introduce linear algebra? There are two different ways. Either you introduce vectors first and then go to matrices, or you first introduce matrix and then talk about vectors. So say I am going to introduce vectors, and that will give rise to vector calculus. When you have vector matrices, obviously system of linear equations will come, and we are familiar with these two well-known steps, either Gaussian elimination or matrix inversion. Matrix is also used in linear programming, but that generally what we do, we first define vector space, and then we define a map from one vector space to another vector space, satisfying closeness of addition and scalar multiplication. That gives rise to linear mapping. Now, once I know linear mapping, I can define analytic geometry, which is very interesting. And then some classification can be made. Okay. Vector space also requires some part of abstract algebra, that is group theory. Okay. Okay. Now, one more part is still left. I have vector. I can define something in terms of linear independence and dependence. Once that is known, I can find out basis, what it is. And then the last part here comes dimensionality reduction. And why everything I need to get back to starting from either vector calculus, I need to get down to dimensionality reduction. And that is what is required when you have a huge data set and go on reducing it without disturbing the pattern or the characteristics. I need to get down to dimensionality. If I have 10 raised to 10 data set with me, and if I want to characterize it, I need to go to 10 raised to 2 or 10 raised to 3 for 3 influential parameters have to be worked out. Okay, so main aim in this talk is how to reduce huge data through vector space, matrix, algebra, group theory to dimensionality reduction. Okay, so system of linear equation, it was saying as a first part, and this concept plays a central part of the linear algebra. Generally, we call it a heart of the linear algebra. And many problems one can formulate as a system of linear equations, and linear algebra gives us the tools for solving them. We have a huge amount of linear algebra tools which can give me the solution. What is geometrical interpretation of system of linear equations? It is easy to visualize in 2 dimension or at the most 3 dimension. But once it goes beyond 3 dimension, may not be easy to visualize for at least for the student. So let's see, if you have 2 variables, x1 and x2, then each linear equation we can define in x1, x2 plane. And solution to a system of linear equations must satisfy all the equations simultaneously. Okay, the solution set is the intersection of these lines, whatever number of lines you have. And the intersection set can be line if the linear equations describes the same line, or a point, or empty set. So this is talking about what can be the solutions of the system of linear equations. It can be either a unique point or empty set or infinitely many solutions. I'm particularly interested in the unique solutions. So here I have 2 lines. I have plotted it. They are intersecting, and one can check that they are intersecting at the point 4.5. Okay. So this is a first part, that is unique solution. And for 3 variables, 3-dimensional space, when we intersect these planes, that is satisfy all linear equations, what can be the solution set? It can be a plane, it can be a line, it can be a point, or empty set. So in general, there are 4 different types of solutions when 3 linear equations are getting solved. Okay. Now we want to categorize in terms of general solution and unique solution. So let us have the system of differential equations. We collect the coefficients of Aij into vectors and collect the vectors into matrices. So this is first one is A11 column wise with x1, column wise with x2, and so on, and equal to resources, or you can say constants. Now, if I collect this, that is a column vector of coefficients, then it will have some expression of the form what is on the screen as a last equation. So now something about matrices, and then we'll again get back to system of linear equation, because I said I'm more interested in getting unique solution through general solution. Okay. So matrices can be used to completely or compactly represent system of linear equations, but they also represent linear functions, and linear functions generally in matrix algebra or linear algebra we call linear mappings. Okay, say you have m and n belonging to natural numbers. A real valued mn matrix A is of m cross n tuple of elements Aij, which is ordered according to a rectangular scheme consisting of m rows and n columns. This is known to almost everybody. Okay. So we have, because I said m and n, we have rectangular matrix with entries Aij. If you have only one n matrix, that is 1 row and n columns, then we might say matrix to be row matrix, and m rows and 1 column, then it is called column matrix. And we call it spatial matrix as either row vector or column vector. So in fact, I'm doing simultaneously 2 things, vectors and matrices. Okay. Some of the 2 matrices, if they are of the same order, I can define it element wise. There is no problem with it. Only problem comes when you have a multiplication to work out. Their order should be particularly you have to properly define. That is, here it is given that A is of order m cross n and B is of order n cross k. Then obviously I can define the C matrix, which is product of AB. So here I just have to be careful about the column of A and rows of B should coincide, then matrix multiplication is possible. And this also gives you one point to note, that matrix multiplication may not be commutative. For example, here I can define matrix multiplication. But if I change BA, then matrix multiplication order is not survived. So I cannot define D matrix, which is BA and equal to C. Okay. So this is what has been said. Okay. Matrix multiplication is not defined as an element-wise operation on the matrix elimination. So Cij not equal to Aij, Bij if you change matrix AB to matrix BA, even if the sizes of A and B are taken appropriately. Okay, so even if matrix multiplication is possible, this may happen. And this kind of element-wise multiplication occurs and quite useful in programming language when we multiply multi-dimensional array with each other. And that is what is called a Hadamard product. Identity matrix, we all know, diagonal elements 1 and rest elements are 0. Then some of the properties, matrix multiplication is associative, matrix multiplication is distributive also. Distributive, we have element-wise addition and matrix multiplication, that is order has to be survived. Okay. And scalar multiplication or matrix multiplication with identity matrix. So if you multiply given matrix with identity matrix, it should reduce to the matrix itself. Now, inverse plays a vital role in finding the output through machine learning. And for that, you need to have a square matrix. Square matrix is one where number of rows and columns are same. B, a matrix B, I want to define as an inverse if and only if AB, that is product of AB, is equal to IN is equal to BA. In that case, B is called inverse of A, and generally we denote it by A superscript 1. So it doesn't mean that every matrix will possess A inverse. And why not? You can have a here. That is, if this regular matrix does not, if regular matrix inverse exists, and A is called regular, invertible, non-singular. And if it doesn't exist, then we call it singular. No doubt. At present, you all know that A inverse will not exist if determinant is 0. But I need to develop that when you have a singular matrix with some other tools. So I have not mentioned it here. But if you are sure that matrix exists, then obviously it will be unique. Okay. If you interchange rows and columns of a matrix, then we get a transpose. That is, if A is M cross N matrix, then B is called M cross N, B is of order N cross M. When you interchange elements of matrix B with that of A. So Bij element becomes Aj, then we get a transpose and we write B equal to A transpose. In general, A transpose can be obtained by writing the columns of A as the rows of A transpose. That is what I am just interpreting verbally, that how you define the transpose of a matrix. And you all know about the properties that A inverse is identity. AB inverse changes its order, so B inverse, A inverse. A plus B inverse need not be equal to A inverse plus B inverse. Transpose of a matrix is matrix itself. And product and sum transpose preserves the transpose addition and multiplication with change in the order. Because when you define multiplication, AB is not equal to BA. Okay. So here also order is getting changed. AB transpose becomes B transpose A transpose, and AB inverse also becomes B inverse A inverse. Next comes symmetric matrix. And if A equal to minus of A transpose, then we call it a skew symmetric. But in machine learning, we are more interested in getting transpose and matrix itself equal. So we will have it to be symmetric matrix. One property of inverse and transpose, one can say here, if A is invertible, then so is A transpose. Quite obvious, okay? Because if A is invertible, then A inverse transpose is also invertible, and I can get the result. Now, sum and product of symmetric matrices. That is, if A and B are symmetric, can I say A plus B to be symmetric? Yes, always. But for product, not necessary. Even if product is defined. That is, if you have two matrices, you can define product, but need not be symmetricity. That is, symmetricity of the product of two matrices may not be preserved. For example, if you consider this one, and now have a transpose that it is 1, 1, 0, 0. That is not equal to product C. Okay. Multiplication by scalars. So that is quite easy to recollect that they are multiplied by a scalar lambda. That is, each element is getting multiplied by a scalar lambda. Practically, lambda scales each element of A. When we say that we are multiplying each element of A by a scalar lambda, then what we are doing? We are multiplying each and every element of that particular matrix by scalar lambda. So in machine learning, we call that a matrix is scaled by lambda. So you have a command as a non-executable statement. If you want to scale your matrix by 5 units, I just have to multiply each element by 5. That is what this means. Okay. Now I'm coming back to matrices, system of linear equations. I have this system with me. I can have matrix representation. That is, coefficients I wrote in terms of first matrix, then unknowns in column wise, because matrix multiplication should also be defined, and right side resources are taken in column matrix. Now, what does this mean? That x1 is scaled by 2, 4, 9. That is first column. x2 is scaled by 3, minus 2, 5. And similarly for the x3, it is 5, minus 7, minus 3. And generally we write this as Ax equal to B. A is coefficient matrix, X is the matrix of unknowns, and B is resource matrix. That is what we say in linear programming. So this system of matrix is compact way of formulating system of linear equations, and we write Ax is equal to B. Now next we want to have solution of this. That is particular solution and general solution. In some of the cases, you need only general solution and then you can get the particular solution. This is almost similar to what we do in differential equation. If you simply solve differential equation with constant, we call it general solution. And as soon as you put initial conditions, you get a particular solution. Okay. And that also we do in getting trajectories while solving partial differential equations. Okay, suppose you have this system. 1, 0, 8, minus 4, and so on. X1, X2, X3, X4 are variables. And so what it says, you have 2 equations and 4 variables. Okay. This system will have a general solution. We would expect infinitely many solutions, because we also know that if number of equations and number of solutions, number of equations and number of variables are same, then there are 2 types of solution, either unique solution or infinitely many solutions. Here I have 2 equations and 4 variables. So obviously we will have infinitely many solutions. That is what our expectation. This system of equation is in the particular slightly easy way because first and second column, if you look at 1, 0, 0, 1, okay, yeah, it's quite good one. I don't have to do any labor work in finding solution. It's a unique matrix format. So we want to find scalars x1, x2, x3, x4 in such a way that xi, ci equal to b. Okay. Ci is the jth column, sorry, Ci is the ith column of the matrix and B is right hand side. So I have this thing, B, I can write as solution to the problem can be found immediately by taking 42 times the first column because it is 1, 0. Okay, so I have 42, 1, 0. Right side was 42. And 8 times the second column. So we have B, 42, 8 equal to right hand side. Quite easy. But instead of 1, 0, 0, 1, if I have 1, 7, 2, minus 3, then it won't be such a simpler solution. Okay. So 42, 8, 0, 0 is called a particular solution or spatial solution. However, this I can't declare it to be unique solution. Okay, there can be many more solutions also. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I'm writing 8, 2, minus 1, 0, C1. I'm going for the scaling one. Okay, so for any scaling of this solution by say lambda 1 will give me this condition. Okay, this is what was known. This is right by coefficients of the right side. So I can get, when I multiply them, I get lambda 1 equal to this thing equal to 0. Now let's have one more, lambda 2. Okay, that is possible. Okay, so now I have two different scalings. Let's see what is the relation. Okay, so what I can do, I can for any lambda 1 and lambda 2, I had a particular solution, I have a general solution. So general solution in terms of scaling. So I can combine them to get the general solution of the system as this one. So obviously you take any value of lambda 1 and lambda 2, you will generate a number of solutions. And that's why in the previous, before 2 slides, I said that this can have infinitely many solutions. So 2 equations and 4 variables can have many solutions. Okay. So general equation systems are not in the simpler form, what I said previously, because here 1, 0, 0, 1 is giving me easy way to get the solution. Fortunately, there exists a constructive algorithm way of transforming any system of linear equations into some simpler form, and this simpler form is very well known and even students are fond of, Gaussian elimination. But this Gaussian elimination is based on elementary transformation of the system of linear equations. What this transformation does, they convert or they transform the equation system into simpler form so that you can easily, looking at this matrix, you can say that, okay, this will be the particular solution. Okay, so now I have to say about elementary transformations. Row echelon form. A matrix is in row echelon form if all rows that contain only zeros are at the bottom of the matrix. So it should have a particular form. Correspondingly, all rows that contains at least one non-zero element are on the top of the rows that contains only zeros. So, okay. So if you can formulate row transformations through row operations in such a way that only zeros are at the bottom of the matrices and all rows that contains at least one non-zero element are on the top of the rows that contains only zeros. So if you look at if you just visualize that what matrix this will look like, looking at the zeros, non-zero rows only, the first non-zero number from the left, now I'm going with the northwest corner, are called pivot or leading coefficient, and is always strictly to the leading coefficient right of the pivot of the row above it. And this leads to basic and free variables. Basic variables are non-zero variables and free variables are zero variables. So the variables corresponding to the pivots in the row echelon form are called basic variables, and others variables will be defined as free variables. We'll have next example which will define all the three concepts, that is how to get pivot element, how to get pivots, how to get basic variables, and how to get the free variables. Say you have 4 equations and 5 variables. Okay. Now this matrix for A equal to -1, this system will have solution x1, x2, x3, x4, x5 to be 2, 0, -1, 1, and 0. Okay. So now from this one, what I can say, what are the basic variables? x1, x3, and x4. That is non-zero solutions are basic variables and rest are free variables. Now, something more about the pivots and the staircase structures. The leading coefficient of a row, I already said, that is first non-zero number from the northwest corner, is called the pivot and is always strictly to the right of the pivot of the row above it. I repeated this one with some purpose. Therefore, any equation system in row echelon form always has a staircase structure. Okay, that is going one step, another step, third step, and so on. Okay, but what I need for reduced row echelon form, it can be defined only if it is in the row echelon form. That is, it should satisfy the zeros and non-zero entries. Every pivot element is 1. If it is not 1, then you can just divide by the particular scalar and get northwest element to be 1. And the pivot is the only non-zero entry in that particular column. So the rest of the entries should be 0. Okay. We know that systems of linear equations are solved indirectly by either stationary iterative methods, such as Richardson, Jacobi, Gauss-Seidel, or successive over-relaxation methods, or subspace method, Kyle-Low subspace method, such as conjugate gradients, generalized minimal residues, biconjugate gradients, and many more. Now, machine learning algorithms are basically, or I can say bricks for the machine learning algorithm has 3 main concepts for solving equations. One is Kyle-Low subspace method, second one is conjugate gradient generalized method, and third one biconjugate. In fact, conjugate and biconjugate gradients, biconjugate gradient is somewhat faster convergence compared to the conjugate gradient. Okay, now in number of slides I said vector. Okay, so next concept is that of the vector. Vector as objects that can be added together and multiplied by a scalar, similar to what we said in matrices. Now we have that much background so that we can introduce the concept of group, which is a set of elements and just one binary operation. Okay, on these elements that keep some structures of the set intact. This is a group definition, that closure property, associativity, neutral element or identity element, and inverse element should exist with respect to binary operation. Here it is star. Now, inverse will be defined as X inverse. That is in the last part I said X star Y equal to E. So Y will be X inverse. And if you have one additional property, okay, that is commutativity also gets survived with respect to binary operator star, then group is said to be commutative group. But at present in machine learning algorithm, I don't require commutative group, so I have not added into it. Okay, now from group, I will be defining vector space. have a real valued vector space V, because why I'm saying real valued, because your data is real valued data. Okay, it is covering real-time events. So we'll say that our vector space is real valued. When you say vector valued and when you want to define vector space, you need to have two operations. That is plus and addition and multiplication. Okay. With respect to addition, it should be abelian group. Okay. And also distributive law should be obeyed with respect to scalar multiplication. Associativity and neutral element should exist with respect to second binary operation. Okay, that is dot here. If all the conditions are satisfied by a particular set, then we define that space to be vector space. Okay. But instead of moving with the whole space, let us move down to subspace. Subspace also is a vector space with the same operations, only we are considering some of the elements from it. Okay, so I need not go with the definition. Overall view is a subset U of V also is a vector space, and we call it subspace if U is a vector space with the same operations and all other things are preserved. That is associativity and all, distributive law and all. Okay. So to determine that is this is subspace test, I only need to check that U is non-empty. That is at least zero element belongs to U. U is closed with respect to addition, and scalar multiplication should satisfy conditions A and B. That is with respect to outer operation, lambda, for lambda belonging to R and X belonging to U, lambda X also belongs to U. That is closure is satisfied, and inner product should also be closed. Okay. Generally, we call it outer operation and inner operation. Now, knowing about the vectors, I have a collection now, vector space. So I can now define linear independence. The closure property guarantees that we end up with another vector in the same vector space. When I say lambda x or lambda of x plus y or simply x plus y, that means that addition of two vectors is also in the same vector space. So it is possible to find a set of vectors with which we can represent every vector in the vector space by adding them together and scaling them. It depends. Only addition may not be preferable, so we can also scale them. Okay. So let us have, so for that, I need to have a linear combination. Have lambdas, say k lambdas to be real valued real numbers, and vectors, k vectors in the vector space. Then I can get a new vector, which is addition of lambda I xi. Okay. And the whole thing V equal to sigma lambda I xi is called linear combination of k vectors. Okay. And zero vector is always be that, because I can always say 0 is equal to, take all scalars lambdas to be 0, then you can have 0 equal to sigma 0 xi. So 0 vector will always be expressed in terms of linear combination of the other vectors. So it's a trivial vector. Okay. Now linear dependence and linear independence. Okay. If this combination is taken as 0 and at least one of the lambda I is non-zero, then we say vectors are linearly dependent. And if this condition happens, then geometrical interpretation is the given vectors are coplanar. Okay. But if you have 0 equal to sigma lambda I, that is linear combination is equal to 0 and all scalars are 0, okay, then we say that the vectors, all k vectors are linearly independent. And in machine learning algorithm, we are more interested to have the linearly independent vectors. I'm still having one more example which will say how to how to talk about linear independence and linear dependence. Okay. Linear independence is a set of vectors consist of vectors that have no redundancy. Now, redundancy means what? That is, they are not differing from, in the characteristic in the data set. Okay. So what it says that if we remove any of those vectors from the set, we will lose something. Okay, and that is what is required. Okay, I can't lose any of the characteristic of my data set. Okay. Let's have one example. Suppose myself in Ahmedabad is saying that where Bangalore is to someone. Okay. So what I need to say, you can go to Bangalore by first going X kilometer northwest to Mumbai, and then Y kilometers southwest, you will reach to Bangalore. Okay. So is this sufficient? Yes, because the geographic coordinates system may be considered and even can be easy to visualize a two-dimensional vector space. Here it is. We have Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Bangalore. Okay, I want to reach from Ahmedabad. My goal is to reach to Bangalore. But I was told that you go to Bombay first, that is Mumbai first, and from Mumbai you take a flight to Bangalore. Okay, so northwest, southwest. I can go directly from Ahmedabad to Bangalore without having any waiting time at Bombay airport. Okay, so this arrow AB is linear combination of AM and MB. Okay. So you can also explain this in terms of when we teach our students, just saying that linear independence and linear dependence, lambda 0 and non-zero, if you just give them example, they will visualize it in a better way. We have one remark which says that K vectors are either linearly dependent or linearly independent. How to find it out? Okay. If at least one of the vector, that is I'm saying vector itself is zero vector, then we are linearly independent. The same holds if two vectors are identical, that is they are one is the same thing. Okay. The vectors xi are linearly dependent if and only if at least one of them is linear combination of the other. If I can say that x1 is equal to linear combination of other vectors x2 to xk, okay, then it is linear. The vectors are called linearly dependent. Okay, but a practical way of checking whether vectors are linearly independent is to use Gaussian elimination. Write all the vectors as a column of a matrix A and perform Gaussian elimination, that is use row operations, so that your matrix gets reduced to row echelon method form. And when it is done, pivot column indicates the vectors which are linearly independent of the vectors on the left side. Okay. Note that there is an ordering of the vectors when the matrix is built. And that is what we had said while getting matrix into row echelon method. Okay. The non-pivotal column can be expressed as linear combination of the pivotal column on the left. That is what it looks like here, 1 0 3 0 0 2. Now this is the row echelon form, and this says that first and third column are pivotal columns. The second column is non-pivotal column because it is 3 times the first column. Okay, so first and second column, you can say vector, are linearly dependent. But first and third vector, if you take, that is column you take, then they are linearly independent. Okay, this is what I said there. Okay, generating sets are the sets of vectors that span vector. Now we are going to the span. And what is span vector? It is the smallest generating set that spans a vector subspace, space or subspace. So whenever you have a vector, you form a subspace and find from the subspaces, there are a good number of subspaces available. From that, the smallest one is called span subspace. And that is what we define as basis. You have a vector, a generating set A of V is called minimal if there exists no smallest set B that spans V. And every linearly independent generating set of V is minimal and is called a basis of V. Once you have basis, you can define rank of a matrix. That is the number of linearly independent columns, well-defined rank of a matrix. But what exactly you are doing when you find number of independent columns, it is also equal to, because you are working with the square matrix, it is also equal to number of linearly independent rows. So either rows or linearly independent columns, you can get the rank. Rank of A and rank of A transpose are always same. If you have a column of A which spans a subspace, then dimension of U will be equal to rank of A. Dimension of U is number of elements in subspace U, which are linearly independent. So, but later on, we will also need image or range of A. At present, just wait. A basis of U can be found by applying Gaussian elimination to A so that you can identify pivot columns. What we had 1, 0, 3, 0, 0, 2. Okay, now I'm ready to have linear mapping, that is linear function. You have two vector spaces V and W, and the mapping F from V to W is called linear if for any two vectors X and Y and any two real scalars lambda and mu, it preserves scalar multiplication and pointwise addition. That is f of lambda x plus mu y is lambda times fx plus mu times fy. This mapping can be injective, surjective, or bijective. It is injective. Injective is 1, 1. If f of x equal to fy implies x is equal to y for all x, y belonging to vector space. Surjective is onto, that is Fv is equal to W. That is the domain and codomain. Domain under F goes to codomain. That is f of B is equal to W. And if your linear map is both 1, 1 and onto, we end up with the bijective. Okay. And this bijectiveness you require when you want to define inverse of a linear map. Okay, isomorphism, if it is both linear and bijective, that is what we said, 1, 1 onto, and also it should be, it should satisfy closeness. So isomorphism. Endomorphism, if vector space is same, that is F map is from V to V. But now what is automorphism? That is a map should be linear. Okay. And this, automorphism and endomorphism is similar to what we say homomorphism. Okay. In homomorphism, I don't require bijective. Okay. Identity homomorphism is also known as identity mapping or isomorphism. That is IDV is from V to V. That is X goes to X. Then the map is called identity mapping on V. Okay, now about the coordinates. It can also be in terms of vectors. Okay. You have a vector space, you have a basis, and for any X belonging to V, I am having a unique representation. X is equal to alpha 1 B1 plus alpha 2 B2 up to alpha and Bn. With respect to basis B, be careful. And alphas are the coordinates of X. Okay. So we write in terms of vector, which is in the black color, and that is called coordinate vector. So I can say coefficient of B1, B2, Bn are represents coordinate vector with respect to order basis B. Then comes a transformation matrix. You have a vector spaces, you have a basis, order basis obviously, and if you have a linear map F from V to W in the black form, then the unique representation of f of bj with respect to basis C, that if it exists, no, okay, then then a f ij is equal to alpha ij, okay, and this transformation a f ij is called transformation matrix, and this transformation matrix is with respect to C when transformation is done on matrix B of V. The transformation matrix can be used to map coordinates with respect to an order basis in V to coordinate with respect to order basis in W. That is, basis in V and basis in W are mapped through transformation matrix. This is how transformation comes. First figure is original data. I'm rotating it by 45 degree. So now it is looking like a rhombus. Okay. Now we stretch this by horizontal axis. Okay. So that is what is you have third figure. And when you stretch this rotation by 45 degree, okay, no, sorry, it is 135 degree, then we have a general linear mapping. So this is what is transformation of matrix in 2 dimension, you can say. You had a matrix, after training a data, you got another matrix. You want to find out whether they are same or not. In matrix, we call it equivalent. If there exists regular matrix, regular means inverse exists, regular matrix S and T such that B equal to T inverse AS. You had 2 matrices, and there exists regular matrix S and T such that if these conditions are getting satisfied, then we call 2 matrices to be equivalent. Okay. Because when you have huge data, after row echelon, you have reduced the dimension, still it may be of huge size. Then instead of going with 1 by 1 entry, if you can verify that this condition holds, then both the matrices, both the data which you had operated on will turn out to be equal. Then similarity. Instead of T inverse, if I have regular matrix only S, and B equal to S inverse AS, then we can say that those 2 matrices are similar matrices. And in the machine learning algorithm, if after getting the output, if you find that 2 matrices, if you want to say that 2 matrices are having similar properties, then this condition should get satisfied. Similar matrices are always equivalent, quite obvious, and vice versa is not possible, may not be. So equivalent matrices are not necessarily similar. Okay. Now, like previously we said range, now it's time to define even kernel. If you have a linear map from vector space V to vector space W, then kernel space or null space we are more familiar with. That is kernel of F is F inverse 0 element of vector space W. What does this mean? Set of all vectors V from V which are getting mapped to 0 in vector space omega. Vector space 0 element of vector space W. An image space will be image of F will be collection of all W belonging to W, that is vectors W from the vector space W, such that there exists vector V in vector space capital V, so that you have F of V equal to W. Physically, what I can say that if every element of vector W is having object in vector V, which can be mapped to W under linear map F. And now I am in a position to define rank nullity theorem, well-known theorem. You have 2 vector spaces, V and W, linear map. Then it says that dimension of kernel of F and dimension of kernel of, image of G should be equal to dimension of V. That is, if I can find out what is the kernel of F, if I can find out what is the image set of G, sorry, image set of F, not G, then I can define what can be the number of elements in the vector space V, which is defined as dimension. And most of the book are referring rank nullity theorem to be the fundamental theorem of linear mappings. There are three main consequences. If I have relation in dimension or image set, kernel set, and vector space, then I can get good number of interpretations. If dimension of image of F is less than dimension of vector space, then kernel of F is non-trivial. That is, there will exist more elements than only 0 vector. And dimension of kernel of F will be greater than 1. Then another one is if transformation matrix of F, that is AF, with respect to an order basis, and dimension of image of F and dimension of B is less than, then the system of linear equations AFX equal to 0 will have infinitely many solutions. So even if you don't want to go with any calculation, just find out kernel dimension, you can find the what can be the solution of the linear differential equation, sorry, the system of linear equations. Okay, and if dimension of V and dimension of W are equal, then F is injective, F is surjective, F is bijective. Okay, this 3 holds if and only if. Now I can define affine spaces. If you have a closer look at the spaces that are offset from the origin, that is space that are no longer vector spaces. Okay. And in machine learning, the distinction between linear and affine is very, very small. Like, it's sometimes not clear. Looking at the spaces, you cannot say that this is affine space or this is a linear space. So we can find reference to a affine space, that is mappings, as linear spaces or mappings. So let's have a affine space, how to differentiate. Affine subspace is a space L, x0 plus u. X0 is from the vector V and u is subset of V. So you have a collection of vectors V from vector space V, which is sum of x0 plus u. Okay? And this subspace, that is, it satisfies the both the properties of vector space V, but only some of the elements has been taken up. So we call it a affine subspace or linear manifold of V. That is, L is linear manifold of V. And this is what we also do manifold. We also teach manifolds in abstract algebra. U is called direction. That is what it defines. U defines direction, or affine subspace directional space. That and once you have this in terms of 2 dimensions, you can find out, in fact, this direction in which these vectors are moving. And this x0 is called support point. If you move this support point, your affine subspace will also move. And this is what it is almost similar to hyperplane in operations research. Okay, now I am in a position to define analytic geometry. You have a norm. When you have vector, you can define norm. Norm in Euclidean space is length. We'll also go with orthogonal projections. And orthogonal projections, length, rotations will reduce to matrix decomposition, and they will also reduce dimensionality of the matrix. This I have not said classification because at present I'm not going to touch in this particular talk. Norm, as we said, is a real valued function. It is real valued, that means it's a map from V to R. And now we define by double bars. It is absolutely homogeneous. That means for any lambda, any scalar lambda belonging to R, you have a norm of lambda x is equal to mod lambda into norm x. It satisfies triangular inequality. Because we are with because we are with a real valued function, sorry, real set, norm is non-negative and it is 0 if and only if it is if vector itself is 0. Okay, so that is what is the last part, positive definite. A matrix A is an orthogonal matrix if and only if its column are orthonormal. So now I need to know what do you mean by orthonormal. Okay, this is in terms of matrix, that is A transpose reduced to identity matrix, or A transpose A also reduced to identity matrix. But this is quite good. If I know that my matrix is turning out to be orthogonal matrix, I can find out A inverse. And A inverse and I know A transpose, so I know A inverse, because A inverse and A transpose are equal in orthogonal matrix. Okay, orthonormal basis I have, sorry, orthonormal vectors I have, so I can define orthogonal basis. If inner product, that is norm product, because norm, if you write x squared, that means as good as inner product xx. Okay, so I have a basis, I have an n-dimensional vector space, and if inner product of bi bj is 0 for I not equal to j, and it is 1 for I equal to j, then we call a basis to be orthonormal basis. And if it is not, that is if first condition is satisfied, I not equal to j, product is 0, inner product is 0, then it defines orthogonal basis. Every basis vector has length. Here I should have orthonormal basis, not only basis, because I'm defining norm to be 1. And this two concept, that is orthogonal basis in terms of orthonormal basis, really gives rise to orthogonal projections. Projections is actually important class of linear transformations, besides rotations and reflection, which we had in figures previously. And they can give us about the graphics, coding theory, statistics, and obviously our main topic, that is focus, machine learning. In machine learning, we often deal with data that is high dimensional, and high dimensional data is often hard to visualize, as I said in the beginning also. But this high dimensional data quite often possesses the property that only a few dimensions contain most of the information. And that is what we are doing in this particular presentation. We have reduced to huge small dimensionality, and most other dimensions are not of any use, that is, they are not playing any role in defining the data. Okay. When we compress or visualize high dimensional data, we will lose information, some of the information. That is pretty sure. Okay. To minimize this compression loss, we ideally find the most informative dimension in the data. Okay, because we can't afford to lose any important information. Okay, so data can be represented as vectors, and now we will go with the fundamental tools for the data compression. More specifically, we can project the original high dimensional data onto a lower dimensional feature space and work in this lower dimensional space to learn more about the data set and extract relevant patterns and data structures. For example, machine learning algorithms such as principally component analysis and deep neural networks, we also call it deep autoencoder, heavily exploit the idea of dimensionality reduction. Okay. For a given low dimensional subspace, orthogonal projections of high dimensional data retain as much information as possible and minimize the difference or error between original data and the corresponding projection. This corresponding projection is nothing but the dimensional reduced data. Okay, this is what it reduces. You had a huge data in terms of Robert. Now I have only matrix of order 6 by 6. Okay, so Robert with huge number of data is reduced just in terms of the 6 parameters. And if you look at this one, there are a good number of rotations. Okay, and these rotations are with respect to theta, and also rotation by theta is also not unique. Okay, and here you will have almost obtuse angle. Okay, but if you look at this one, it is 90 degree. At this one, it is 90 degree. But then if you look at this two smaller one, there is very small angle between. Okay, between two crypts. So we can have a rotation of the standard basis in terms of cos theta and sin theta, and this is known to everybody. So I'm just skipping it. So in general, in 3 dimension, use Fleming's left-hand rule. X-axis is E1, that is unit matrix. Y-axis is E2, and Z-axis is E3, and rotate blue to black by theta. Okay, and this will reduce your data. So we are coming nearer and nearer to the reduction of the matrix. Now we have matrix decomposition. And for matrix decomposition, I need to be very careful about the inverse. And for inverse, I need to be careful about the symmetricity, that is square matrix. And if I have a square matrix, I will have, I can find out determinant. And once I know determinant, these two components goes automatically. You can find eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Once I have eigenvectors, I can always formulate orthogonal matrix, and that will all give me diagonalization. If you don't want to go with eigenvectors, you can also work with eigenvalues and get diagonalization. And diagonalization helps me to get matrix in the SVD form. And SVD is nothing but the dimensionality reduction of a given matrix. So this is what it looks like. Here we have an eigenspectrum of a biological neural network. In the black figure, it is neuron indexes are given with 2 data sets, and we converted it into eigenspectrum, and you can see that the whole data given in the black shade is now only between 10 to minus 10, concentrated between 10 to minus 10. Between 10 to 25, that is white spots, has been trained, or you can say learned. Okay. And trend you can obviously find from here. You can't find what is a trend in this biological event, but obviously I can find from the second figure, this figure, that if I say transmission, that is event is getting decreased. So it is under control. So methods to analyze and learn from network data are an essential component of machine learning method. And the key to understand networks is the connectivity between network nodes, especially if 2 nodes are connected to each other or not. That is in terms of equivalence or similarity of 2 matrices. In data science applications, it is often useful to study the matrix that captures this connectivity data. That's why I said the similarity or equivalence. As I said in the beginning, that I will be ending up with one example which uses machine learning program, and that is Google's PageRank. Title is Google's PageRank or web page as eigenvectors. Here I'm just saying what are the steps which has been followed. Google uses the eigenvector corresponding to the maximal eigenvalue of the matrix A to determine the rank of a page for a search. So you have a matrix of huge data set, because when you just click on some web page to find, it will generate a matrix. That matrix is finding maximal eigenvalue, and this eigenvalue can give us rank of a page for a search. The idea for the PageRank algorithm was developed at Stanford University by Larry Page and Sergey Brin in 1996 was that of importance of any web page can be approximated by the importance of the page that links to it. For this, they wrote all websites as a huge directed graph. So graph plays a vital role, obviously directed graph. Okay, that shows which page links to which. Okay, so page rank computes the weight. Weight here means what? What is the importance? That is xi, obviously non-negative, of a website AI by counting the number of pages pointing to AI. The navigation behavior of a user is then modeled by a transition matrix A of this graph that tells us with what click probability, that is with what probability somebody will end up on the different website. And this is obviously not desirable. If I want to look for a particular paper of a particular author, then it should direct me to that only. It should not direct me to any other author or any other paper. So eigen composition will help us to enable to extract meaningful and interpretable information that characterizes linear mappings. And therefore, the eigen decomposition underlies a general class of machine learning algorithm, which is known as spectral methods, that performs eigen decomposition of a positive definite kernel. Obviously, positive definite will always remain, but to make it more clear, we have defined it only as a positive definite kernel. And for that, SVD allows us to discover some of the same kind of information as the eigen decomposition. If you just type N.H. Shah, okay, it will give you a number of things. But if you type this particular paper by N.H. Shah, then SVD will help you to the same kind of information as the eigen decomposition. However, SVD is more generally applicable to non-square matrix and data tables. It says that because till now we said we can work only with square matrix, but SVD helps in non-square matrix also to extract the information. And this matrix factorization method becomes relevant whenever we want to identify heterogeneity in data. Not necessary that every time we look for the same type of characteristics. Okay, we may in the same homogeneous data. If your data is heterogeneity or heterogeneous, then SVD will help you. When we want to perform data compression by approximation, or we want to perform data pre-processing. SVD operates on matrices, which we can interpret as a rectangular array with two indices, rows and columns, and the extension of matrix like structure to higher dimensional arrays, what we call as a tensors. Okay? And in tensors, you can work with any order you like. It turns out that the SVD is a spatial case of a more general family of decomposition that operates on such tensors. SVD low-rank approximation is quite useful in machine learning for computational efficiency reason. You get more efficient results, and even convergence is much faster. And this is because it reduces the amount of memory, because after all, everything is getting stored in memory. So you need to reduce the memory content. And operations with non-zero multiplication, we need to perform non-potentially very large matrices of the data. Moreover, low-rank approximations are used to operate on matrices that may contain missing values. You can also find missing values, as well as for purpose of lossy compression and dimensionality reduction. Lossy compression is sometimes preferable Because if some of the data is not of any use, or if you feel that this will not going to improve the solution, then you can go with loosey compression, and that will reduce the dimensionality of the matrix. So this is what is from my end. I will welcome questions if you have.
Participants, any questions?
Any questions from anyone?
Like some chats are there.
Chats, questions are not there in that, I think.
No. It is just they are only concerned about feedback link.
But madam, it was a very good talk. And can you mute there, please? Very good talk, and I think a very good insight how linear algebra is so very much useful in machine learning. So because new courses are starting, all this AI and ML, so many colleges and universities, this new course has started, and they request the mathematics department to go hand in hand with them. And we are slowly understanding how mathematics is so very much useful to AI and ML. So today's talk was excellent, madam. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this talk.
Thank you.
Geeta?
Nitasha madam, your talk was so nice, and really we learned something from your talk, ma'am. Really, thank you.
Thank you.
We are really happy to have you here today.
Yeah. Thank you. And tomorrow in the second session, you will have hands-on on this, so that will give you more insights that how one can use linear algebra in machine learning.
Yeah, looking forward to it, madam.
Yes.
Anybody has any question, you can ask now, or otherwise you can post it later on also to us. Not an
Professor
issue.
Radha madam, Professor Soni is here. So,
Hardik Soni, hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello,
Yeah,
sir.
please.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good
Yeah.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Hardik
Yes.
Soni, sir. Yeah.
Very good afternoon,
We
ma'am.
have your session tomorrow.
Yes. So I will show you the application of this part, whatever the madam has explained. Okay, so we will see the hands-on regarding the same. So wherein you can apply the concept, and specifically on the SVD side. Okay.
So those two participants need to be ready with some kind of software or something. Will that help? Will that
yes,
help?
I'll conduct this experiment in the Python. So
Okay.
if the participants are familiar with the Python, then it's good. Otherwise, I also brief them how to install the Python and how to install the another related libraries.
Okay. Okay. I think not many of the participants here are aware of Python. So I think that would be good if you can give some insight to Python installation also, maybe some 5-10 minutes, if that is possible.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, that will help us.
Sure.
Thank you so much, sir. We are looking forward for your session tomorrow, the hands-on.
Yes.
Thank you, Neeta ma'am, for giving us such a wonderful topic on which you are going to, because very much relevant nowadays. No, we are actually doing a lot of syllabus framing and other things in this field. So it will definitely give us a good support to build the syllabus.
Yeah, actually, I should confess that this topic was given by Professor Hardik Soni.
Okay. Okay, good.
Me and Hardik Soni sir are together from 2001.
And
We whenever we go for such things, new things, we always contact each other.
Nice.
yes.
And then say that how we can make our sessions interesting.
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
thank you, Soni sir. Personally, I will
ma'am.
thank you, no doubt. But this is, in
Sure.
FDP1, Atal FDP1, I should thank you for giving me such a nice topic that I can go with.
True, very true.
Okay.
I'm really honored for this, ma'am, but Neeta ma'am is my guide, and I always get inspirations from her side. Right.
Oh, that's really great.
She's very much, she's doing lots of experiments, and she's always ready to do some new things. So that is a very good quality of her. Right.
Thank you.
So I'm yes.
Yeah.
So anyways, I will see you tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay,
So
ma'am. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.